Welcome back to Petty Astrology. I'm your host, Kaycee Felton-Lui, and I'm very excited. We have our very first Petty Astrology Live guest. It is the one and only Mackenzie Wollenzien. Yeah. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I was watching on my phone, but now I see it.
Okay, good. Welcome. Thank you for doing this little experiment with me on our first guest appearance for our Gemini party.
Ooh. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
It's so nice. It's so nice to have a guest. It's so nice to have somebody that isn't just me on the screen for once. Okay, cool. Our audio's good. There's as far as we know, we're all good to go. So yeah, this is a first for everything. So Gemini season seemed like a good time for me to branch out, have some people on the podcast because I don't know about you, but like Taurus season hit me really hard, and I feel like the weight has kind of come off a little bit. Um, but yeah,
I
what are
agree.
you feeling?
Oh my gosh, Taurus season, I was like I mean, I'm tired now, but I feel like it's a different kind of tired. Like I was like physically my body was tired during Taurus season, but now during Gemini season, I'm like mentally tired. So it's like a two totally different types, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
definitely feeling it.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like I just got like really worn out over Taurus season. There was a lot going on and it like felt more visceral, with that earth
Yes.
sign energy. Whereas now I agree with you. Like I do feel like mentally tired, like overstimulated a little bit.
Yes. Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
And, we both talked about this Gemini season and how it's kind of a wild one. And I feel like that is certainly in the air, but I also kind of feel myself coming back to life.
Yes. It's like a switch got turned on or something.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. So, here we are. We are a few days into Gemini season. At this point, we've been we've been getting our sea legs and all that. And I wanted to talk about Gemini energy because, as we've talked about before, you and I are both pretty big fans of Gemini energy, which is funny
Yes.
because it's one of the most, I think, hated and misunderstood signs.
I know.
So,
I think
yeah,
it's
so like
very misunderstood.
very, very misunderstood. And I was watching your wonderful YouTube video, Gemini 101, today to just kind of
Oh,
get in the mood for our conversation today. And yeah, like it is a sign that it's not going to be the same all the time. And I feel like because of that, people have a lot of discomfort with Gemini energy if they're not like super familiar with it, or if that's not their cup of tea. And
hmm.
so I thought, why not celebrate this season? Because, we love it so much. And usually this is the time of year in colder places where things are kind of starting to warm up and like life is coming back. And so I
Yeah.
figured that we could kind of collectively, channel some of this Gemini energy and carry it with us for the rest of this wild Gemini season.
Yes. It is a wild Gemini season. I listened to your Gemini season YouTube video and there's so much going on.
There really is. There is a lot. There's a lot going on. There's like always a lot going on, but it feels like we're in a wild and wacky time.
Yeah, it
um,
really does.
yeah, it's just. I mean, I've talked about it at length. With the Pluto and Aquarius of it all, and some of the energy that we have, particularly in 2025 and 2026, is just like, what is going on. um, yeah, it's a lot, and I think Gemini energy. One of the benefits of it is that it is a mutable sign. It is a sign that can pivot and adjust, And I think all of us can actually use more of that, even those of us who are kind of good at it right now, because this is a time period where human beings, I think, collectively are being asked to pivot a lot and like,
Hmm.
you know, stick that landing and try different things and be experimental. And so I think it's like a really good moment for us to appreciate, you know, Gemini energy.
I agree. That's such a lovely like quality of Gemini is just how adaptable and flexible they are. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not every like Gemini is going to be like that, but that is just like a Gemini quality that I personally feel like I have that. I'm able to kind of like adapt to different environments. Not quite like a chameleon, but kind of like a chameleon, you know?
Mm-hmm. I feel
Yeah.
like this is probably a good time for us to talk about our Gemini placements so that the people can kind of get a sense of where we're coming from and
Yes.
what they're seeing on their screens right now. So tell me about your Gemini energy, Mackenzie.
Well, I am a Gemini rising and I'm a first house Gemini moon. So I really associate with the Gemini energy. And it's so funny. When I read about like Gemini moons at first, I was like, that's so not me. But like the more I've sat with it and the more I've kind of discovered and learned what Gemini energy really is and not just like those stereotypes, I was like, okay, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it's funny when you get past the stereotypes and kind of the negatives that most of us usually like come across, you know,
Yes. Yes.
early in our astrological journeys is like, oh, that doesn't sound like me, or you know, that sounds like the worst version of me, you
Right.
know. And so we got some other Gemini placements in the chat. Hell yeah! Like, please, if you're here in the audience, share your Gemini placements as well, because this is a party. We don't want to just be talking at the audience. We want your participation, and that's why we summoned the Geminis here today. Okay, we know you
The
are loving
yappers.
yappers, so like
Yes.
get those little fingies going. Okay. Yeah, I would
What are
love to.
your Gemini placements?
My Gemini placements, I have one. I have the one big beautiful Gemini placement, and I feel like she's pretty loud. I think in my chart, I have a Gemini Mars. It's in the 12th house. It's also retrograde, so a little freaky with it. But I love her. We've got a Gemini moon in the chat here. Astrologer Jen says, I'm not a Gemini, but I love and support y'all. You are like an honorary Gemini, I feel like,
I
because
agree.
with your Sagittarius energy, I feel like you roll really well with the Gemini energy. So honorary, honorary. And if you don't have a Gemini placement, tell us where Gemini is in your astrology chart, like what houses it's in. Probably you'd prioritize the house or houses that have Gemini on the cusp. But
Hmm.
anywhere you have Gemini. That's the thing, is that we all have all signs. So even if you're like, I'm number one Gemini hater, it's like, well, there's some part of yourself that you don't like so much. Uh,
Exactly.
we got Mrs. C and the B, Gemini Chiron in the third house. There we go. We got an asteroid in the house. One galactic mushroom said, my Gemini moon is conjunct my descendant. Hell yeah. Mrs. C and the B says, I love Gemini people. We love you.
Right.
Astrologer Jen said, I'm honored. Fourth house and fifth house for me. Awesome. Some great stuff there. We've got a lot of Gemini energy in this Chili's tonight. So, welcome Gemini allies and aspiring Geminis.
Yes.
Maybe next round you will do it. What is your favorite thing about being a Gemini, Mackenzie?
Oh God.
And I know it's hard to choose, but like it, you know, maybe
There's
your
so
favorite
much.
today. Okay, and
Okay.
that's always what I come with, like these mutable signs. It's like it doesn't have to be. You don't have to commit for the rest of your life, but just for right
Yes.
now, like what's your favorite right now?
I think I am really good at lightening the mood sometimes and like throwing in a joke and like keeping things light and fun. But
Mm-hmm.
another one, I really am able to see things from lots of different angles and lots of different perspectives. Um, which, I think some people, like, especially if they have a lot of like fixed energy, they might not like that about me. And they might think
Mm-hmm.
I'm like I don't know, two-faced or whatever, but I'm just able to see lots of different perspectives, I think. But yeah. What about you?
Gosh, humor is like super, super huge for me. Hello,
Yeah.
hello, welcome everybody in the chat. We are talking about Gemini energy. We're talking about if you have a Gemini placement, maybe what your favorite thing about that Gemini placement is. And if you don't have a Gemini placement, that's okay. I'm sorry for you, but it's fine. You have Gemini somewhere in your chart, so you can share that too. We're
Yes.
celebrating Gemini energy in the club tonight. So I like humor. Humor is really important to me, and it's like spiritual to me, which is a big. That was something that astrology helped me kind of realize that humor actually is a big part of my spirituality and like how I talk to the universe, and like I feel like I'm always kind of like trolling the universe, and the universe
Mhm.
is like kind of trolling me. And so for me, like humor is a really central function of like how I move through the world. It's my coping mechanism. It's my energy shifter. Like when I need to shift gears,
Yeah.
like that is the first thing that I reach for. Um,
Yes.
I've been in emergency rooms in a hospital bed and I'm cracking jokes. That's how I deal with, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that's how I do my energy work. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing until the last few years of my life. But that's my number one energy changing mechanism is humor. So,
Yeah.
that's I think that's my number one, my favorite thing about being a Gemini because it saved my
Yeah.
ass a lot of
Silly
times.
goofy. And
Silly goofy.
it is like a transformative, it's like alchemy in a way, like taking one thing and turning it into another. And I think laughter is a really great way to do that.
I 1000% agree. Astrologer Jen says, I love how inquisitive Geminis are. They always have fun facts and the hottest gossip. Yeah, I agree. Gemini curiosity, I think that's part of why Geminis can be so funny. Like not every Gemini is like the funniest person you've ever met, but
Yeah.
like being inquisitive kind of requires you to pay attention. And
Yeah.
like to something, and maybe not everything, or maybe not the thing that you're like supposed to be paying attention to, but
Uh-huh.
there's like a noticing going on. And so I think that's part of why Geminis tend to have the fun facts and the hot gossip, is because they got their finger on the pulse of
Yes.
something.
Yes. Also just like very observant and they notice everything, I feel like.
Yeah.
Were we talking about this the other day? We saw a meme or something. Let me pull it up.
Okay. Probably we were. Hello, we got medium Carrie Wilson in the house. Hello, hello. We got Philium Delphia. Ren Van says, love how Gemini people don't stagnate and change all their lives. Yeah, that's like, that's true, I think, of a lot of mutable signs, maybe all of them. But I think the way that Gemini tends to do it, it's like, man, it's not even all their lives. It's like 1 minute to the next. So
Hmm.
there's a vitality, I feel like, with Gemini energy to me. Like, because if you think
Hmm.
about it, right, we we in I know there's a bigger picture if we want to get real heady with all of this, but as far as we can kind of conceive of, you know people, we exist in this life and then we die, we all die, spoiler alert. And when we die, we don't change anymore, right? That's when the change is done, like that. As far as we can comprehend our life here on earth, you know that's it. That's where the change has stopped, right? That's the
Hmm.
final change.
Yeah.
But to me, part of why Geminis are so interesting and exciting is because they're not afraid of that constant movement that is a part of life, that I feel like other signs might not notice so much. Like,
Hmm.
actually, things are always changing. And so I feel like Geminis can really embrace that aspect of life. Like, actually life is always changing. We are always changing. And instead of pushing that away, I feel like Geminis tend to be better at embracing, what it
Mm,
means to be alive, which means open to change, right?
yeah,
And
totally agree.
yeah, and it's funny because like humans, this is one of the things that I'm sure you and I, as people, as human beings, and also like as astrologers who tend to help people, we can provide insight into the future, which is like kind of a superpower, right? Like, not everybody has that type of an insight that can make facing an uncertain future a little bit easier, right? But we don't
Yeah.
know every damn thing that's going to happen. And I think as human beings, like, we tend to really want things to stay the same and stay comfortable so that we feel safe.
Yes.
And it's funny because that's the sign after Gemini is Cancer, so I feel like that's like that corrective, like,
Oh yeah.
no, I'm not. This is too changey.
Right.
We need to settle down and get back to what I'm comfortable with, right? But
Uh-huh.
but I feel like uh, that is a quality I think that makes for a lot of like growth and aliveness and uh, learning, really, which is another good keyword for Gemini, is like the perpetual learner.
Yes. And like students of life. I said that in my Gemini 101 video, but like it's just so true. And they just love having new experiences and meeting new people and having those conversations. And it's like, it's a very like person to person sign, all about
Yeah.
communication and, sharing experiences and sharing stories. I just love it.
Yeah,
I'm biased.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it makes for very like interesting lives, right? And
Yeah.
Gemini is also like the writer and the storyteller.
Yes.
So it's like if we don't try different things, if we don't like live our lives, like what are we going to have to say?
Yeah.
What are we going to have to what stories are we going to have to tell if we do the same thing all the time?
Yes.
But
Exactly.
like I feel like Gemini energy really teaches us in a lot of ways to embrace what is so fundamental about life. It's like it's always gonna, if you're alive, it's always changing, no matter how safe and secure and stagnant you feel like it is. There's no such thing, really. As long as you're alive and kicking, there's still options. There's still things that you can do. And I feel like that's kind of the essence of Gemini energy for me, anyway.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because Gemini rules the nervous system and also the lungs. So it's kind of like as long as you're breathing, that's still like you're getting new stuff in, and I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is, we might feel like we're not changing, but literally our bodies are always changing. And also, our bodies, talking about duality, we're full
Mm,
of like other organisms.
yeah.
So, how are we like one entity, right? But like, are we? Like it kind of gets kind of wild when you start thinking about like the duality and like the complexity of a sign like Gemini. It's like, uh, it kind of upends our ideas of like solid ground, like the Taurus, being established and our feet firmly on the earth, and Gemini's kind of like flip that shit. Like, are you?
Yeah. Right.
We got some more Gemini rolling in here. Uh, One galactic mushroom said, "There is no such thing as TMI for me." Yeah,
I agree.
Gemini's. That's another nice thing I think about Gemini's. Is like because they are so versatile. Like you know, they're going to probably have a lot of different types of information and like be familiar with more than one thing, and so probably going to be a lot more open to different types of information than somebody's like, I don't want to hear about that.
Right.
Gemini is like, what is that? I want to hear what you're
Tell me
saying.
everything.
Yeah, tell me more. Exactly. Shelby by the shore says, I have lived many lives rolled into one. Yeah, that is a classic, I feel like a Gemini statement. And hello, we got Scott the poet here as well. And
Hello.
if you're just joining, please do share if you have Gemini placements or where Gemini is in your astrology chart. We're bonding over Gemini energy tonight. But I love what Shelby said because I think this is very true. of a lot of Geminis, and I'm a writer. And so, Gemini being the sign of a writer, this is something that I said before I even knew I had a Gemini placement. When I just knew myself as a simple Scorpio sun,
Yeah.
and I found out that I had this Gemini Mars, and that Gemini was the sign of a writer, and it made so much sense to me because ever since I was a little kid, I knew I was going to be a writer. But I also
Oh,
had other, like, when you're a little kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? There was like a whole bunch of different like eras for me of like I want to do this, and like I'm more interested in this, and then all through my life I've had all these different eras where I get really really interested in something. And what I realized was that part of the reward of being a writer for me was that I get to live many different lives in this one life.
that's
And
a good
like,
point.
right? It's so Gemini because it's like I get to inhabit like these characters and these spaces. Most of the writing I've done is fiction or like screenwriting. So, I'm writing people that I have created in a lot of cases. And
Uh-huh.
so by doing that, I'm able to like, this lifetime, I don't think I'm ever going to be a surgeon, but I've written, I can write a character, and like, yeah, then I get to be a surgeon a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of
And
like
we got
trying on different brains.
exactly. We got dealer of hope in the house.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome. So, I think Gemini energy for that reason is always going to be kind of a favorite of mine, just because it's it's just keeps things interesting, which, for you and I with our Gemini energy, it's like, how do you feel about boredom, Mackenzie?
You know, I go through phases depending on like what transits I'm going through, where it's like I just like can't get bored because I'm like I have so much that I want to read or like
Mhm.
so much that I want to do, but then I go through these phases where it's like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Everyone is like boring me. Like if I'm like, I don't know, on like different apps, I'm just like, ugh, these people are boring. But if they just, I don't know, if they don't add to something, then I'm just like, I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm similar in that way, but it's like there's always something to catch my attention, and there's
Yes.
this like, I guess it's the dopamine reward that we get from like satisfying our curiosity, but that pretty much keeps me going. I'm almost like
Right.
I'm almost, it's like if I'm not interested in something, I'll go find something else that is more interesting, or that's when I start making jokes and being silly, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm the main character, interesting one
Right.
here. Like something's got to shift. But I
I guess
think I think
no.
with like a lot of different interests and like curiosities, you're right. Like there's always kind of a stack of things where you're like, well, I can go do that thing or learn about that thing, and it's almost like
Yeah,
there's never enough time.
exactly. I'm like, oh my God, I have so many YouTube videos I want to watch, so many books I want to read. And it's just like you have to like pick one and it's like, let me do like three things at once.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and which we also do. I do that often. Earlier today when I was getting ready for this live stream, I was like, I'm eating, I'm doing stuff on my phone, I'm putting my makeup on, and I was like, that's like a normal amount of things for me to be doing at the same time.
Oh, same. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shelby says I've got Gemini Sun, Rising, Venus, North Node, and Chiron. Damn, Shelby. I think you might be our winner until someone
Right.
comes and claims claims the title from you. You said I'm never bored. Scott the Poet says I have a Gemini Mars. Me too.
Oh,
And one galactic mushroom said I am almost never bored, but if I am, it's like so painful.
real.
Yeah, yeah, that's when you start getting into trouble. Uh, there's
It's
been,
like, let's create something that's
yeah,
more.
yeah. Have you heard before, like in terms of like negative stereotypes of Geminis, have you heard the association between like Gemini placements and like serial killers?
No, but it would make sense. I think, isn't it Jeffrey Dahmer?
There's a
A
bunch, I
Gemini?
think. I
Yeah.
so here's the thing. If you ever hear that fact out in the wild, that may be true. It probably they're talking about like I would think sun signs in most cases. It's probably
Uh-huh.
people that are just like cursory. But here's the thing. Those, first of all, the Geminis that are serial killers that we know about are the ones that got caught.
Yes.
So first of
So
all,
true. So
no,
true, Queen.
they're just the ones that got caught. So remember that. First of all, second of all, they probably ran out of stuff to do.
Yeah.
You have to
Or like,
keep, this
I'm
is why we need
curious.
after school programs. This is why we need community centers. We have got to keep the people busy so they don't start cutting things up, cutting
Uh-huh.
people up. Uh, that's my, that's my presidential campaign. Okay. Actually, I
I
can I
mean,
can run for president at the end of this year, guys. By the way, fun fact. Um, that just occurred to me, so that should be my platform.
yes. I think actually like the most presidents have been Scorpios, so
Oh, really? Well, that kind of makes sense.
it does. The power.
Shelby says I have a list of things that I want to do that I reference. Absolutely. Yeah, you got it. What's next? Come on. There's more. I know there's more. Philium Delphia said I can't pick one anything. Yeah, exactly. That's how it is. Shelby says I've heard about that before, the serial killers. Yeah, it's like one of those things that people will say, like, did you know? Because people don't like Gemini energy and they
I
stereotype
know.
it. And so they're like, did you know the serial killers are Geminis? First of all, they're not all Geminis. So if you were to operate with that assumption, you'd be missing serial killers. You know what I mean? Like you
Oh
don't
yeah.
wanna don't dupe yourself.
I think there's probably
Astrologer
also a lot of Pisces and Virgos. I could see that.
Oh, and there is. That's the other thing. Is there is. Astrologer Jen says a bored Gemini makes it everyone else's problem. Case in point, that is, yeah,
So true.
so true. And that's what Shelby said as well. When Galactic Mushroom said they got
Oh,
bored. What happens if I get caught? If you get caught, you get to go on the list. They get to go on the list.
yes.
Shelby says people who don't like Gemini just don't like change, or they don't understand it and are just listening to stereotypes. That's usually my that's usually my takeaway from that. I'm like, I guess you hate fun and humor and like anything that you've ever laughed at is thanks to Gemini energy in one way, shape, or
Hmm.
form. So when Galactic
I
Mushroom
think.
said I meant they get bored and wonder what happens if they get caught. Oh, maybe.
Ah,
That's an extreme extreme level of boredom.
or it's like, let's see how far I can push it.
Right?
I think that's kind of like the
Sure.
mischievous Gemini.
Yeah, astrologer Jen said clown acts of solidarity. That I don't remember who it was the other day. Maybe it was Jen, maybe it was Kathy, but they were like called it the Gemini Sag axis, the clown axis, and yeah, I was like I got to start using that because that is 100% correct.
It
It is
is.
the clown axis.
I love it.
Shelby says top tier is when they create their own cipher to troll the authorities. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, look, we don't know the identity of the Zodiac killer. We might there was a guy on TikTok, I don't know if you all saw, but who's like, I'm pretty sure my uncle, I think it was his uncle, was like the Zodiac killer, and there's something going on with that. So maybe it's finally been solved, but I have not seen a chart. I would be curious, like, what was up. I bet you he did have a Gemini energy because that just screams like, let's play a game.
It does. I'm
But
gonna
yeah,
Google.
well, we don't know who the Zodiac killer is, so we don't have a chart.
I swear it got solved, but maybe I'm just like,
Well, they think if it's that guy's uncle, then maybe. But I don't know. I don't think we know that yet. I'm keeping my ears out, okay? I grew up with a family of people who did a lot of true crime type of things. So
oh,
a lot of
like
Scorpio
they were
energy
into
in the
it.
home. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was learning about serial killers at a very young age.
Oh my God.
But Scorpio, I was like fine with it. I was like, yeah, this is extremely interesting.
Tell me more.
Yeah, yeah. But I think
Unidentified.
exactly. See,
I don't know
boo,
what I saw.
boo.
I don't know. TikTok lies to me.
Yeah, well, you're right. Astrologer Jen is saying they found the Golden State Killer, but I don't think they got the Zodiac Killer.
Oh, okay,
And
yes.
so you might just be thinking of the other famous
Yes.
California serial killer. Well, we got a few actually, but yeah, the Golden State Killer was a cop. And actually, I think that the guy, if that uncle of the TikTok guy is he was really convincing. But if that is actually Zodiac Killer, he was also a cop. I believe. I believe that guy was also law enforcement.
Are we surprised?
No. Next question. uh, yeah, there are a few people that they think it could be, but not positively identified, says Shelby. Yeah. Uh huh. Yeah. 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 Back in the day, you used to be able to do crimes much more freely. I mean, think about it. Like they were working with a lot less information than we are now with phones and the internet. Like they were really giving them a run for their money because they had
I
to
know.
go around investigating and couldn't even Google anything.
It's crazy. They used to just like stomp around in the blood and
Ren says a surprising number of men can't just hate their dads; they have to write a book about how they were secretly a serial killer. Yeah, so maybe it's one of those cases, but yeah, I have been out of the true crime loop for a minute, so I haven't honestly I haven't looked at like any serial killer charts in a while, but it's funny. I just think it's funny that that is like a little bit of a Gemini stereotype. It's like they're murdery, they're murdery, and they make a little bit of a habit out of it.
they're just curious.
hmm
Let's
Yeah,
see what happens when we cut this person.
I mean,
Oh,
honestly, you can see for certain people why that might be a thought that they would have.
uh-huh.
Dissecting people, and there's all kinds of creepy stuff that serial killers will do, collecting things.
I'm
Yeah.
looking up Jeffrey Dahmer
I think he did
birth
have some
chart.
Gemini. I think from what I remember. Um, but I mean, you got to keep yourself busy. You got to keep yourself entertained. And being a serial killer is certainly like a full mental activity, I would think. It's like it's really getting in there.
Okay. He's a Gemini sun and Mercury in the eighth house
Well, there you go.
and an Aries moon.
Scott says, I find it much easier to call the seven plagues of Egypt down upon people. I think that is certainly a safer idea. I think, yeah, that's probably more my speed because look, it's 2025. We can't get away with things like we used to. So maybe the Geminis will they understand uh, information and have a sensitivity towards it. And Astrologer Jen says the Aries moon is why he got caught.
Literally. And he has an Aries Mars.
Well, there you go. There you go. Shelby by the Shore said Son of Sam also had his son in Gemini. Yeah, there are, it makes sense to me like that there would be some Gemini placements in that, it's a extreme form of stimulation. And like
Yeah.
that dopamine reward that we were talking about, which I do think is a big thing for a lot of us with strong Gemini energy.
Yeah.
We tend to be dopamine sinkers.
Yeah.
And so, some of us get our dopamine from being deviants. And so, there you go. There you go. But yeah,
Little pranksters.
Astrologer Jen says the Capricorn serial killers don't get caught. Dealer of Hope says being stabby. Yeah. Yeah, a Gemini would be, I think, a little bit more stabby, a little more hands-on.
Yeah.
They really want to get in there, you know. Watch
Oh,
the last breath leave them.
dark.
Mm. Yeah, sorry. You were like you guys came for the Gemini party and and you're like, now we're going to talk about serial killers. But it is funny because, the Gemini hate is kind of I don't know, it is so loud. I think one of the other things that is a stereotype that I've heard, which we did, if you guys remember, we did the sister sign series where we
Mm.
talked about Gemini and Sagittarius energy because they are opposite signs, otherwise known as sister signs. And we did talk about some stereotypes in that episode. And some of the stereotypes for Gemini, like flighty, unreliable. Also, like liar is a big one. And I think that one is one that I hear cited a lot of like, oh, I don't date Geminis, and like, it's one of the
Every
things.
sign lies.
First of all, yes. Um, Geminis just might have more fun doing it, I think,
That's
than maybe
true.
other signs. But um, but I
They
don't
like
know
to
that
create a story.
exactly. Well, yes. Yes, but I think it's funny. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that? Because I find that, I mean, I think I'm an extremely honest person. I don't think my
Mhm.
Gemini energy has made me a big old liar.
Yeah.
It's made me creative, and that could, if I wanted to be a big old liar, I'm sure it would help.
Yes. Well, in my youth, I was definitely a little deviant liar. I used to lie to my parents constantly, and I would be like, "I'm the best liar." But now it's interesting because I really am a bad liar now.
Mm.
Like I have so many tells, and like I feel I don't know, it's really hard for me to lie now. So I think it's
Mm.
funny I did like a 180.
Yeah, that's funny. We got one galactic mushroom saying I also used to lie a ton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah, I think
It
it
wasn't
also
any like harmful lies. It was
mhm,
always kind of like white lies. And I'm
mhm.
like, oh, I'm going over here when I was like going to a boy's house or something. Like,
Yeah, teenager stuff.
exactly. But I was really good at it and I had fun
Yeah.
and I got creative with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Shelby says I've never been able to lie. I just tell it straight. Yeah, I definitely don't think it's like a universal thing. I think like Mackenzie said, like all signs are capable of dishonesty. They're probably going to approach it a little bit differently or have maybe different capacities for it. But I don't think it's a fair write off for Gemini placements, like for people that are so hardcore about like I don't fuck with Geminis.
Right?
Like,
I
okay,
think
well,
Gemini is just like maybe one of the more easier signs to hate on because like
I
it's like
agree.
people dogpile on it and
Hmm.
it doesn't help that some of like the worst people are Geminis, like, our current president.
Yeah, right, right.
Just one example, but I think every sign there's somebody that's like, ooh,
Right. Oh, totally,
but,
totally and completely. There's always somebody that makes the rest of them look bad, right? but
right?
but that's the thing. I don't think Geminis are more predisposed to being like dishonest than any other sign. Scott the poet says the biggest stereotype I've heard is that Geminis will flip moods like a switch. What do you think about that, Mackenzie?
Um, with my Gemini moon, that does tend to happen. It's kind of like I'll be having a good time and then someone will say something and I'm like, fuck you, it's just like I switch and people are like almost surprised at how fast I can switch, but then I can also switch out of it pretty quick.
Yeah.
If I'm able to like make myself laugh or do something like that, but otherwise I might get stuck in that mood for a while, but
Hmm.
um I don't know. When I was younger, it definitely was like up and down, up and down. But
Yeah.
I think as I've aged, I have grown into it and it's evolved a little more.
Yeah. It's interesting because at least for me, like I have a Cancer rising, so I don't think my moodiness, I wouldn't blame it on the Gemini Mars. I can also turn on a dime too. Like if something pisses me off, it's like I can go from being really happy to being super pissed off really quickly, but I can also, like I said, I've laughed in the ER before. Like
Uh-huh.
I'll get right back to something else. So I will
Yes.
say anger tends to linger a little bit longer just because of I think the Scorpio energy. That
Well, it's
one.
like you gotta talk it out or something, like get it out of your nervous
Hmm.
system.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think also I think part of that sort of stereotype is because we live in a culture where people are expected to like behave in a really narrow range of ways too. And
Mhm.
so like when people don't adhere to that, then I feel like it's like, "Oh, you're unreliable. You're flipping like a switch." And it's like, "Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, sorry for feeling my human feelings."
Right. I think not saying that like every person with Gemini placements is neurodivergent, but I really feel like there is that tendency, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Where it's kind of like, I don't know. Sorry, my cat is meowing and it's distracting me.
That's okay. Is she a
It's
Gemini?
my Gemini.
Does she have any Gemini placements? Because
Yes, she's a
been going on.
Gemini.
Yeah. Okay. I
It's
was like, she's
it's her
been really
birthday in
active.
2 days.
Oh, we got that Kazemi today, which is if you are newer to astrology, that just means Mercury and the Sun are very close together right now, astrologically, and so it might be a day where you have been more mentally energized, or maybe you've been yapping a lot, or maybe just being here watching us yapping is is feeding that energy a little bit. So if you're feeling a little bit overstimulated, that might be why. But it was funny because I asked Mackenzie to do this, and then I looked at the date, and I was like, of course it's gonna be. Well, of course we're gonna do Gemini party on the Gemini Kazemi.
Right. It's only right.
Yeah, I do
Yes, it's
think.
my cat's birthday tomorrow. I can't
Oh,
believe it.
wow, how old is
And
she gonna be?
yes. She's gonna be 5.
Oh, they grow
That's
up
so
so
weird.
fast.
I know. I feel like I just got her yesterday. But yeah, she's got Gemini Sun, Venus, and North Node.
Oh, wow. So no wonder she's like all lit up today.
And she has a Virgo moon and a Virgo
Oh,
rising, so she's
oh my
very
gosh.
mercurial.
Right, yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. Uh, let's see. We've got a lot of comments here. So we have Mrs. C and the Bees said, I think of that Churchill quote, tact is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip.
Period.
Yeah, that's versatility. One galactic mushroom said Gemini energy is so contrary to our Capricornian culture, I think. Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's like people want everything to be very firm and reliable. And that's kind of, I mean, not that a Gemini can't be those things, but that's not really the beauty of the energy. It's like you can get a lot more out of it by letting it, not be the same all the time, I think.
Hmm.
Someone outside is yelling. They're getting hit by the Kazemi. Philium Delphia said, people are generally kind of dumb, and I think the symbol being the twins lends itself to the stereotype of two-faced. I think that's right, too. I think people kind of don't understand um, that twin symbolism and like what that
Hmm.
what that is supposed to mean, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I don't know where I heard this. That's what happens when you've been studying astrology for a while. It's like you've accumulated so much, and it's like, where did I hear that? I don't even
Right.
remember. But like the Castor and Pollux, like
Mm-hmm.
one of them was like a demigod, and one of them was like a mortal. And so I think like one of them like died or something, and like they just were always side by side, like always with each other and inseparable. And so they just like put them in the stars or something. So it really is like, your higher self and then like your human self.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I view it as the twins. But
Yeah. It's funny because I was just gonna say, I think to me, ultimately, like one of the most resonant interpretations of like the twin thing is that, like, one of the things that I guess I think about the most is like we are human beings, but we're also, if you believe this, we're spiritual beings as well at the same time, and that is that kind of. It almost sounds like it's contradictory and could not possibly be true. Like, how can you be human and a spiritual being? But that's the two within the one.
yeah,
But
it's
Shelby,
married.
yeah, Shelby said the duality of twins isn't deceptions. It's about responding to different parts of the world with different parts of ourselves. That's where the twin misconception comes in. Yeah, I think that's well said. One galactic mushroom said I always learn more about what I am feeling when I talk about it. I'll surprise myself by saying something I hadn't realized till that moment. Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. I think especially for y'all with the Gemini moon, I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to Gemini moons is that you're a verbal processor, and you got to
hmm
figure out which types of verbal processing are going to work best for you. It might be all of them, might be on a rotation. Probably you're going to need to do some kind of verbal processing of your
Yes.
emotions. But yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
I
Shelby
can hear
said, that
now.
reminds me, remember when we were talking about pet synastry readings? I found Poe's birthday on his paperwork. Oh, how cute. Yeah.
Oh,
You
a
know,
Taurus.
that would be super fun. That might be a good live reading thing. Live pet
That'd be
readings. I'm writing it
fun.
down, Shelby, because I have talked about this before. I had a friend who she has I can't remember what kind of dog she has, but she actually had this dog's birthday. I don't think she had the time, but I was able using her. She had her time, so I did her synastry with her dog, and it was really fun. She was like, "You should charge people for this," and I was like,
Oh,
"Maybe." But it was really fun for me to do pets industry with people. So maybe we'll do that at some point,
that'd be fun.
right?
It's hard because my other cat, she was a stray, so I have no
Yeah.
idea when she was born.
A lot of people don't have that information, which is why I haven't already done it. Is that most people don't have their dog or their pets' birth information. Just
Yeah.
sometimes, just occasionally, and even if they do have the birth information, they probably don't have the like exact time.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can still do stuff with that if you have the person's time, but
Uh-huh.
that's the only reason I haven't done it before because I would love to do that.
Yes. My Gemini cat, she was born in my sister's closet, so that's how I know her time.
Yeah, you got all you got. That's like the astrologer's dream. It was like to have
I
that
know.
information. I had to like rectify my dog's chart, which I think I did. She's sleeping. I think I did pretty well, to be honest, considering considering that I found her on Craigslist. Shelby said I had no idea until I was going through all of his paperwork the other day and found it. I was so excited and couldn't wait to tell you guys.
Oh,
That is very. I would be very excited if I had that information too, because like, yeah, you have a lot more. Thunderstruck said, "I know my dog's birthday. Oh, Christmas Eve, but no time. Just that
oh,
it was in the evening. I mean, honestly, like, if you wanted to do like a pets industry reading, as long as you have the person's chart, you can lay over the pet's chart without the exact time and get pretty decent information from that.
yeah. A Capricorn.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think, you see it play out differently obviously when you're talking about animals, but I mean every time I look at the placements for a pet that I know, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense, right?
So it's like a different type of reading. Um, do you have any Gemini icons, like people that for you are like that's a fucking Gemini? The first person that comes
Um,
to mind for me is Azalea Banks.
oh my God, yes. That is so funny.
Controversial, but yes,
She will run her mouth.
she will run her mouth. And even if you disagree with her, sometimes you're like, man, she kind of has a point. Or at
Right?
least, she knows how to
Sometimes.
talk shit. Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
completely. When we did the Azalea Banks episode, I mean, I will talk about somebody I like. I will talk about people I don't like. I will talk about people that I have mixed feelings about because, like, with Azalea Banks, like, sometimes I really agree with her. And sometimes I'm like, you are
Mhm.
dead wrong for that, you know?
Yes.
Um,
She's
so
great at insults, though.
incredibly good at insults. She knows to like how to hit where it hurts, and I feel
Yes.
like her words, yeah. Prince is a good, I think, Gemini
Yeah.
representation. Shelby said Lady Gaga, David Bowie.
Yeah.
Those are some Gemini icons for sure.
I always think of Marilyn Monroe for some reason.
Jillian Banks,
Like,
Kendrick Lamar. Yeah, we did Kendrick's.
oh
Kendrick
yeah.
is a very good, I think, example of a Gemini.
The mischievous look. Say Drake.
Right? I wonder if Tupac had Gemini in his
He's a
chart.
Gemini. He
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, there you go. See, Shelby
And I
was like,
think
I know, I know.
I think Notorious B.I.G. was too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's,
Both of
you
them.
know, there's a lot of, I think, I mean, look, there's a lot of well-known everything, but oh, Marilyn Monroe, I believe was
Hmm.
as well. Um, there's a lot of them. JFK,
Rip. Oh, Kanye.
the Olsen twins, a little on the nose, if you ask me.
Right.
Stevie Nicks, yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Jen says Mackenzie knows the celeb charts. Yeah, you do have a pretty good Rolodex in your brain of like who's who. Oh, Kanye, yeah, is definitely a Gemini. Definitely a Gemini.
Let's see.
Yeah, we got a lot of well-known Geminis.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman, our favorite. Um, do you feel like what is your favorite thing about being in Gemini rising? Because people notice your Gemini qualities like right off the bat, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's very obvious to the people.
I I think I'm really good at like when I first meet people, I depending on who it is, if I'm like intimidated by them or not, I tend to ask a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's like that curiosity that just like takes over. Um, I can be kind of like all over the place too, though, like almost anxious to the point, like if I rev myself up enough, I can come across as being probably pretty anxious. Um, I don't know. I think I'm good at just adapting to different environments, and I'm good at kind of meeting people where they're at and like kind of leveling with them in that way.
Yeah. Thunderstruck said the eyes. I noticed Gemini moons have pretty big eyes. Is that something that you've noticed, Mackenzie?
Have I? I don't know.
I'm trying to think. I not all. I don't think all Gemini. Let's see. I'm trying to think of all the Gemini moons that I know, because I know a few of them, and I would say some is like some. I wouldn't say that they have big eyes,
I think
but
it's there's a
some
twinkle
do.
behind them.
Yes, I think that's what I noticed is the twinkle, right? Yeah, yeah. Shelby
It's
said,
funny.
I think my best Gemini rising quality is that I know how to meet people where they are and find a shared language. Yeah. Oh, there
Hmm.
you go. Shelby said jinx. I
Oh, that's funny.
you both said that. Um,
But
we,
it's very funny because I have had this friend that I've known since we were 9. And we've been friends since we were 9. And then we met our other friend when we were like 13. And all three of us are Gemini moons. And every time we
wow.
get together, it's like nonstop yapping. Like it's like time just flies because we're just nonstop talking and
Mm,
always so fun.
yeah, I bet. I have a tendency, it's funny, I noticed that I make friends with a lot of Gemini moons, or like my mom is a Gemini moon, so you know, she's
Oh,
been around in my life. So yeah, I feel like I know the energy really well.
yeah. It
uh,
just feels like home.
yeah, not size but pretty eyes. Thunderstruck said, yeah, the twinkle.
Uh-huh.
Astrologer Jen said, my dad is a Gemini moon and he talks to himself all the time. It's so funny.
Oh,
He'll try to play
real.
it off if we walk in on it and start whistling, but he's a Leo Mercury, so we all heard it.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah, the subtle volume of the Leo Mercury.
I do talk to myself a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I have a tendency to, with a Gemini Mars, my tendency, I tend to talk to myself a lot when I'm by myself, and I'm
Yes.
usually just saying weird shits or like angry stuff or just like fucking, you know, it's like, it's like You know what's funny is that when I get together with my Gemini friends, um, it's like a shared language that only
Yeah.
Gemini placements have. Where we like, I have one of my best friend is a Gemini Venus, and whenever we get together, we like have our own way of speaking that other people that if they're around us probably are like, what are they doing?
The accents.
We do accents. Yes, we do. We have accents. We've got characters. We've got like the voices that we do are references to shit from like a decade. You know, it's like a whole like ecosystem of like, what is this?
And like it evolves. It just like keeps growing.
Yes, yes. It's just like this weird little Gemini bubble.
Uh-huh.
But then when I'm with
Oh.
myself, I have my own language with myself too. It's like that's my own. It's funny. There's like these little pockets of like this is how I act with this person, this is how I act with this
Uh-huh.
person, and I'm one of those people. Shelby says I'm always talking to myself. I get the best answers. My best dad joke.
Right.
That's a good dad joke. I approve. I'm not usually a dad joke person, but I think that one's pretty funny. Um, One galactic mushroom said, "When I am alone, it's pure outer monologue." Scott said,
Hmm.
"I don't talk to myself, but I will fill up a journal really quick." Yeah, it's like it's always going to be. That's important to say about Gemini energy. It's not every Gemini is going to be the yapper.
Hmm.
Externally, it might be an internal monologue. It might be they're a writer, and maybe that's how that information comes out. It might be that they need another person to bounce off of to get that kind of energy, external.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways that this can play out.
Hmm.
Um, Bits, yeah, lots of running bits. Astrologer Jen said the running bits I have with Gemini's are so good. Yeah, there's a lot of bits in my life. I feel like it's a form of connection. Bits are right. Like when you have inside jokes with people. I mean, Gemini is also a sign of connection and even friendship on a certain
Hmm.
level.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not even necessarily like deep friendship, but it's like chemistry almost.
Yeah.
And it's also like this ability to kind of find that chemistry even within smaller interactions or relationships. Like, it doesn't have to be somebody that you know really well, even.
Hmm.
I've tried to do bits, when something weird's happening at the post office. I'm like looking at some guy. I'm like, you see this? You know what I mean? Like, there's that kind of like seeking the connection through the experience, the shared experience, I think is a big part of Gemini energy.
Yeah.
Um, which is why, like, well, I'll leave that. I'll leave that thought, but I could go down that little rabbit hole. But I think that Geminis are seeking connection, and that is part of the bits that you'll see, like why there's so many inside jokes because those things invite connection and they reflect connection, right? Like
Yeah.
the fact that we have these running jokes with these Geminis is like that's a reflection of our history together, our story together. It's
Yeah.
like a
Oh, I love that.
co-creation, right? It's like a co-creation of the story that's ongoing. I fucking love Gemini energy, I have to say. I love all signs truly because I do think that every energy in this universe has a place and has a way that it can be constructive and positive, and it also has a way that can be negative and terrible, like all of them.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but I have to say, like Gemini energy, it's so fun. It's so fucking fun. I love being a Gemini Mars. It's like, I love my whole chart, but I take a special, I think, pride in being a Gemini Mars because I feel like it's one of the aspects of myself that I get the most like mileage out of or something. Like, I'm a writer and like I'm a fucking goofy ass bitch. Like,
Period.
that's right. Like that's part of my like vital, that's like part of what keeps me going in this life is being a fucking little weird troll. Like, you know,
Seriously, though,
right?
without Gemini, I feel like the world would feel a lot heavier.
Yeah, and like boring and like disconnected and like not as fun. And so it's
Hmm.
like, you don't have to like every Gemini. Power to goofy ass bitches, says Philadelphia. I agree. Power to us. Um, Power to us. Let's see. We've got Ren Van said, my partner has a Gemini Mercury, Venus, and Sun. That's awesome. He talks to himself while listening to podcasts and texting Probably all at the same time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love when people are really Gemini heavy. I feel like I can tell. Shelby by the Shore said, "My sister and I do Mrs. Doubtfire bits every time we are together." That's so cute. Thunderstruck said, "Chloe Feynman has a Gemini Venus. It seems like many SNL cast members have Gemini placements." Yeah, Gemini is also
Oh,
the
I
sign
could
of
see
like
that.
comedy and humor. So
Yeah.
that tracks. Lots of jokes and transforming into different characters. That totally makes sense. A lot of comedians have Gemini placements. A lot of writers have Gemini placements, and um, yeah, I mean, so that when you see a comedian or a writer with those placements, it's kind of like, yeah, no shit, you know. Not
Right.
always, not always. You won't always see it. There can also be like other stuff going on in a chart that can also be like, oh, you're a writer. But those
Hmm.
ones are kind of like the obvious, like the
Yeah.
obvious, like the cute. And it's funny, like when you kind of observe and you kind of go beyond the sun signs, you start seeing, you know, the way that this energy is actually like playing out in the world and like all the different ways that it can kind of play out into the world. I have somebody in my life who is a who's a Saturn in Gemini, and that's not a personal placement, so it's not going to reflect in the personality so much. But just as an example, this person is like never funny.
Oh
So just
no.
because you have a Gemini placement doesn't unfortunately mean you're funny.
That's true. Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're funny. She tries, but she's not very. She knows that she's not that funny. I mean, well, okay, take that back. Sometimes she's funny, but it's not because she's trying to be funny. It's just because she is a funny individual, like just existing.
Mhm.
It's not really that sad. She's like, this is a person I know well who's very fulfilled, very happy. She doesn't need to be funny. She is perfect in every other way.
Oh.
Um, she's fine as long as you keep those swabs away from her. Anyways,
Oh.
Dealer of Hope said, I
Oh,
know
maybe.
Geminis are good to get you out of a funk real fast. Also, my
Mhm.
gray area people. Oh yeah. If you wanna change your vibe, go call your Gemini friend. You know what I mean? Like we will. Oh God. I actually what I say to people when they're not doing well, I'm like, do you want me to clown for you? Oh
I
yeah.
love when you say that. It's so
Right.
funny.
Is it time for me to clown for
I can
you?
dance for you.
I literally will. That's my role, I feel like, in life, though, because that's what I've been for myself. Like, I clown for myself. So, you know, I'm happy to expand it outwards. But,
Yes.
the eternal pot stirs, yes. Yes. Shelby said, I love people who are unintentionally funny. Yeah. See, me too. Me too. Gemini's always notice. Or like, oh, that wasn't meant to be funny, but it's so funny.
Right.
Scott says, "Oh, then you'd love me." Yeah,
Oh.
I love people with a sense of humor. I love people that like. Oh, here's something. As Gemini with people with Gemini energy, the clown axis. Yes. Um. Shit, I just lost that entire thought. That's also very Gemini. It's like
Yes.
that's you know I am neurodivergent. I talk about my ADHD a lot live because it comes up a lot live. You guys can probably see it like more than anywhere. Oh, the trolling. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Oh,
Um, a lot of Gemini placements, not all, a lot of Gemini placements, like in my life, part of our sort of love language for one another is making fun of each other. And I feel like you and I, we kind of do that with each other. And like, I
yes.
feel like that's an essential quality is
It is. You
like if you
have to be
can't
able
laugh
to
at
laugh at
yourself,
yourself. Yes.
yes, you got to stay humble, you know?
I
And
know.
also like, okay, so here's the thing with Gemini energy. A laugh is a laugh, first of all. A laugh is a
Period.
laugh, and if you're the subject of that laugh, then you know what I mean? Like you still got the laugh. So like to me, I think
Exactly.
that's where the value comes, where it's like you got to be able to roll with it.
Exactly. Otherwise, yeah, you do get really down on yourself. It's like, lighten up.
Yeah, yeah. I love the clown axis. Astrologer Jen says this is why I love being out with my Gemini boyfriend. We'll both clock something and give each other the look and start giggling. That is another thing too. I feel like that might be just like an air sign thing in general. I feel like where it's that non-physical like do, 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 do,
Telepathy.
like yeah, that connection that's being made, and it's just like a glance, and
Uh-huh.
you don't even have to say anything, and you're like, uh oh, or what the fuck was that, or
Yeah. It's like,
that. And that's also, I feel like that is that kind of twin energy, because sometimes the twin is your friend, or is that
mhm.
buddy, or is the person that you're kind of making mischief with in that particular
Yes.
moment, right? And so it's like the twins can be you, it can be you and a buddy.
Uh,
And then if you really get into it, aren't we all one?
right.
To switch gears, as the Gemini likes to do, like now we're gonna get really heady. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, duality is a really interesting concept, right?
hmm
You know, Philium Delphia said, "Are you really friends if you're not clowning and cussing each other out on occasions?" Yeah. Scott said, "My best
Agreed.
moments happen in concerts."
Oh,
Yeah,
we've
right. Because you
seen some of
can't.
those pictures.
Right. And it's like, that's a good moment for like the nonverbal communication, because usually it's too loud to fully like articulate exactly what is going on. So you're relying a lot on that like shared connection.
Oh,
Ren
yeah.
said, "Oh, B. Arthur had a Gemini, Mercury, and Venus. That tracks. She was a funny person. Extremely tall.
Yeah.
I wonder what her rising situation was. I haven't looked at her chart before, I don't think. I don't know. I don't know. Well, Jeffrey Dahmer, famous Gemini. I'm sorry, I'm back at that. um, so how are you celebrating this Kazemi, if at all? Are you sitting around thinking too much?
I was journaling a lot today because I was having some like self-realizations
Mm-hmm.
as always. But they're triggered by like conversations with
Yeah.
people. So yeah, I was journaling a lot. I was way like overstimulated today and I could not sleep last night and I had to take like a sleeping pill and so I think it's like carried over into like today and so I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired.
Yeah, I feel like the
Yeah.
mental stimulation just since we've hit Gemini season has been really obvious. Um, I,
Yes.
I, we have talked about, and like a bunch of people that we know having challenges with like their appetite right now, because it feels like the
Yes.
energy is really like up here.
Bing,
And
bing, bing, bing.
yeah, and then the rest of the body is kind of like annoying. It's like, oh, I want to be like up here, and I don't want to be
Uh-huh.
down here like thinking about the eating, and nothing sounds good because I'm having fun
Yeah.
up here. That's kind of
Uh-huh.
what it's been here for me. And
Same.
yeah, it's been tough. We gotta remember to eat. It's hard.
I
It's
know.
hard. Yeah.
I ate some
Oh.
candy today. I was like, maybe some sugar will like spike something and it'll make me hungry, but no luck today.
Oh. Yeah. It's important. You gotta do it. You gotta do it, because guess what? If you don't eat, then you can't be a little troll anymore.
And you can't think.
You can't think so good. Yeah, absolutely. Scott the poet said, "It's been a very daunting couple of days for me, almost too much." I'm sorry to hear that.
Mm,
This is, the energy right now, honestly, of this whole year. If anyone says to me they've had a rough couple of days, I'm like, yeah, it's not that every day this year we're all having a bad time, but there's a lot of really challenging and like intense energy this year. So you
mhm,
add that with like, all the stuff we need to do to live our lives, and like our little problems that come up, that are really our problems. So they don't feel so little when they're ours, right?
mhm,
um it can feel really overwhelming. So one of the biggest things I've said for 2025, and this goes into next year too, is like energy management is like one of the most important tools. I think that the universe is kind of giving us some support on practicing this year. And we're kind
mhm.
of practicing on hard mode, unfortunately. we don't get
Yeah.
we don't get the bumpers on the lane here, but we have to practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't mean that you do it perfectly every time. It just means that you need to keep striving for just a little bit better, just a little bit
Yeah.
easier. And
Yeah.
so, go ahead.
I think like grounding, if you
Mhm.
can get into like a good grounding ritual, I think that'll really help as we move forward, like whether it's meditation or breathing or, trying to get outside at least once a day. Because I think when Uranus moves into Gemini, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah,
So get ahead of the game.
I completely agree. I don't have the date on that right in front of me right now, but that's this
I think
summer.
it's like July. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we got a lot coming up, man. We got a lot coming up. So grounding is I love that advice. I love that guidance. Um, Scott says I really suck at energy management almost as much as I do at time management. I really get I lose my sense of time very easily often. And I think it's because of my Gemini Mars being in the 12th house. It's kind of like unanchored and I will just get lost
Uh-huh.
in, yeah. Shelby said I have time blindness. We're both 12th housers with a bunch of that Gemini. And
Time isn't real.
well, time isn't real, first of all. Made up. Made up. First of all, how dare. Second of all, uh we I think for those of us who are usually like neurodivergent have a lot going on up in this area. Um there's plenty going on here. It's easy to lose track of like everything outside of it. Jen said time is Saturn propaganda. Period.
True.
Period. Period. But I do think that grounding is a really, really important, really important thing to practice this year.
Yeah.
Uranus moving into Gemini is no joke. It's July 7th is when that is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's no joke. It's going to be a lot harder. We're going to be
Information overload.
very mentally stimulated, right? And for me, fortunately or unfortunately, if you're like me and you have a busy mind, it's very difficult. Like, you're not going to be able to shut it all off completely, but you have to practice taking breaks.
Hmm.
Some of the things, like if you can't sit by yourself for 10 minutes with your eyes closed and just being present with yourself and just at kind of at ease, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's something that you should work up to, being able to just sit, because if you do that at least once a day to kind of start your day off, you're going to have an easier time getting through the day. It's kind of like a reset for your brain, and it's called meditation. But you don't have to call it that if it scares you, okay? I know, since we're talking about Gemini energy, I hear it all the time. I can't focus for that long. I get distracted. That's fine. Just sit, and if your mind wanders, just come back to your breathing, or just come back to I'm being present with myself. Just have something that you come back to. I'm being present with myself. I'm
Hmm.
being present with myself. You don't have to punish yourself. Just bring it back and then just do your 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
that's that. I will almost guarantee you your brain will feel maybe not all better, but it's kind of like hitting the reset button on your brain.
Hmm.
And you could even do that outside, sitting on the ground. Or if you can't get outside, if you have the ability to lay on the floor in your house and you're feeling ungrounded, do that. I won't tell anyone. You can lay on the floor. It's okay. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Oh, a lot of people are also having trouble eating. Shelby says, I've had trouble eating today too. I ate pineapple. Jen said I was trying to eat last night and I couldn't swallow. I just chewed one bite for so long before giving up. Oh, Dealer of
I
Hope said I'm
almost,
investing in a punching bag. That's a good one too. That's a good one too.
yeah, I was like forcing myself to eat last night and I was like, I'm literally gonna barf.
It's a guy screaming outside at the top of his lungs, the Kazemi. He's a guy that comes around screaming all the time. Like, I think he has mental health issues that cause him to scream really loud. Sometimes really, really horrible stuff out loud too. So that's fun. But the Kazemi, the Kazemi has hit.
He's
Is all I
like,
will say. He's screaming louder than I've heard in a minute. Like,
everyone will hear
ah!
me.
Yeah, yeah. Shelby says I get so immersed in whatever I'm doing. Yeah, like it's this mixture between easily distracted and then hyper focus, right? Which is
Hmm.
something that a lot of us that have ADHD have a lot of experience with.
Yeah.
Scott says any tips for grounding and or energy management? My feet will get gross and I just cannot. It's a sensory thing. Fair enough. Fair enough. Dealer of Hope said go outside and be barefoot and just be in the moment. So that's not going to work for Scott. Scott said my feet will get gross. Um, what do you like to do to ground and manage your energy?
Breathing is a really big one for me. It's just like closing my eyes and like
Mm-hmm.
feeling what it feels like for the air to go in my nostrils and like into my lungs and like what does my rib cage feel like and where am I feeling that air and then just like being really mindful about my breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Also, I have this nature path that I like to go to recently and I just touch trees. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll hug them if they're close enough and I don't see any like, gross bugs or something on them. But, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like even just touching trees, like there's like that exchange of energy there. Trying to think what else.
A few
Tend
weeks
to my
ago,
plants.
touching your plants. Yes. A few
Yeah.
weeks ago, it's funny you're saying that. A few weeks ago, I was feeling very ungrounded and it was Taurus season back then. Remember that? Uh, I I had I have a little patio garden. I live in an apartment and I had a bunch of like plants to pot or like repot. And I have to say, I just doing that, I'm not really a gardener by nature, but just doing that and like touching soil. I had gloves on.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of a sensory. I don't like being dirty. I have a Libra Venus.
Hmm.
I don't like being dirty. I don't like touching things like that. I don't mind touching a little dirt, like I'll wash my hands, but I had gloves, so that was nice for me. But I have to say that I felt so much more grounded just after like 20 minutes of like repotting some plants. I think if you can touch the earth in whatever way is comfortable for you, you can lay a blanket down on the grass outside and
Yeah.
sit on it, and that counts. You know what I mean? Like do it in the way that is comfortable for you. But honestly, like being in nature, I think is yeah, I don't like getting dirty either. I'm the same way, Scott. We can ground together in a very clean fashion. Like no, I as long as I'm making contact with the earth or I'm in a space where I feel very like a part of the earth or connected to the earth. So sometimes it's just literally like if I was on like a nature walk with Mackenzie or like something like that would work really well for me. But being present, I think, while you're doing these things is probably the most important part of it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you don't even have to go outside. You can lay on the floor in your apartment. That will actually help you ground,
Yeah.
and you just have to be present and being like, I am grounded. I am, in the imagination, our mind is actually really powerful in moments like this. And this is something that I would also say to people who, have varying physical abilities. Sometimes people can't go outside. Sometimes people can't lay on the floor or whatever it is. In that case, what I would do is I would say you need to really rely on your mental experience. And so if
Mhm.
you don't have the ability to go outside, imagine yourself outside. You know what I mean? Like and some for some people that's easier. Some people have a harder time with that. But I think trying and playing around with it, imagining yourself in peaceful physical spaces. Uh, my mentor for psychic mediumship, Miss Carrie Wilson, who's in the house tonight, also introduced us to in our class meditation for grounding, where we literally anchored ourselves to the planet. So
Mm-hmm.
don't discount, like you can go and do I recommend if you can go outside and be in nature. You are nature, don't forget
Yeah.
that. But being in nature can be wonderful, but also our minds are extremely powerful, and actually our bodies in a lot of cases can't really tell the difference between an organic physical experience and a mental experience, which is something to think about.
Hmm.
That was something I learned in acting, actually, is that our minds can't really differentiate between a physical experience that we're having and what we're imagining. So, I mean, you can really play with that. Imagine yourself in the most beautiful natural space that you could be anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, but I think being present. Another simple thing that you can do is just like literally, looking around and being like, I see the ring light. I see
Yeah.
the can of soda, because you're being present, and you can just keep going, keep just listing shit that you see. That can be a really grounding, because it's bringing you down to where you are. Grounding is really about being present, wouldn't you say?
Yes, definitely. And just being like in your body
Mm-hmm.
as much as you can. I know it's difficult, especially if people have been through like a lot of like trauma and difficult things. They can kind of disconnect as like a way to protect themselves. But it is really just about slowly coming back down into our body and just being like feeling what it feels like to be in your body, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Giving yourself permission to slow down.
Yeah.
We're such mental creatures, not all of us, but like in general. Even if we're not like conscious of it, our minds are always working a lot. So I think the more that you kind of unburden your body with, your physical experience and just slow down and just being where you are, I think that is the most important thing about grounding. Touching a tree is wonderful. Dealer of Hope said if you're into crystals, hematite is really grounding. That's a hot tip.
Yeah.
Shelby says that's why I use visualization for healing. I pictured my bones growing back. Yeah, I
Wow.
think I think people I think people underestimate how powerful our minds are, and Gemini season is a great time to like reflect on that. And
Mm.
even what I said, it was pretty simple for the new moon in Gemini, which was just this week. You know, uh, our narrative of our experience is completely shaped by what we perceive it as in here and like how we narrate it to ourselves, how we catalog that information, right?
Mhm.
And so being more conscious of the power of our mind and like how we can use it to make our lives more enjoyable or more like what we want them to be is a really important skill to cultivate. And
Mhm.
part of that skill, I think, is grounding. It is actually kind of turning it off and turning it back on. When you have a computer that is glitching or your phone's glitching, what's the first thing that usually you try? Turn that shit off and turn it back on, right? That's what meditation is.
Yeah.
That's what grounding is like hit that reset button, see what happens.
Mhm.
I don't think there's such a thing as like spending 10 minutes at peace with yourself and like carving out that space. I don't think it's going to make your life worse.
Yeah.
In fact, I think,
True.
even if it makes it 1% better, I think it's worth the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think, what works for you. This is what also, if you ever have an astrology reading with Mackenzie or me, and that's something that you have trouble with, that is a great question to ask an astrologer, because if you haven't been able to kind of crack the code, that is something that probably we can help you figure out. Like, okay, what would be a good grounding practice for you? What could we try to do that would kind of suit the energy that you have?
Mhm.
It's not going to be one size fits all. So it's like, that Gemini experimentation, trying and seeing what fits. Maybe the thing that worked for you a year ago doesn't work for you anymore,
Yeah.
you know? But I think that being present and connecting uh, with your present moment, your present environment is probably like the best starting point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
what else? Did anybody have any questions about Gemini energy or things that they wanted to talk about that we didn't get to? Because there's so much to say. We could be here. We could be here all night. Dealer of Hope said I do, but maybe it's dumb. Okay, well, that's okay. It's okay. Doesn't have to
No
be.
such thing as dumb questions.
It's all it's all relative, and yeah, I don't really put a lot of value on like the how good of a question it is.
Cool.
I just really genuinely enjoy like engaging with people about astrology.
Yeah.
Dealer of Hope said, "What does a Gemi IC mean?" So a Gemini IC. So the IC, for those who don't know, is the start of the fourth house in the type of astrology we practice. Um, it is the base of the chart. It's like the bottom of the chart, like the hearth. How would you describe that IC? Uh, I would say people with a Gemini IC probably are used to some level of change at their core.
Yeah.
It may be that you might have had multiple households that you grew up in. It might be that you moved as a young person, and so you had to adapt to different like early environments with your family or whoever you lived with. Um, there is
Family of
probably
yappers.
family of yappers, yeah, and you may not be somebody that maybe your family. It could be that your family is very vocal, whereas you yourself may not be as vocal as the rest of your family, and you might actually kind of keep stuff in. That could be a product of like everybody else in the family was like really talkative and loud and yappy, and there was no space for me, or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's gonna also depend on like, of course, like everything, what else is going on in the chart, but it does point to some sort of like adaptability, I think, early in life.
Hmm. I find that a lot of people with Gemini, I see they're really like they like to learn about where they come from and like
Mm-hmm.
ancestry as well. Like that tends to be something that's really interesting to them, depending on like Mercury placement and stuff. But trying to think what else it could be.
Yeah.
I do think that like multiple like homes or like multiple like
Residences.
family figures, yeah. And like
Yeah.
just
Astrologer Jen said for me, it was like the community was my home. I was at a
mm,
lot of friends' houses or family friends' homes more than at my family home. That is a really common one that I see, or it's like I've seen some people where it's like I was always at grandma's house too, like it could
uh-huh.
be that, it's like I was just there was multiple, or my parents were separated, and so I went back and forth. It could be that. There's a lot of different things it could be. Um, it might also be somebody that has good family stories
Uh,
too, and like
yeah.
probably if you have a Gemini, I see you probably had some really interesting stuff happening at home that you probably could retell or even write about. Like you could even, maybe write a memoir about your youth, and you did. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So does that answer your question, Dealer of Hope? Does that give you enough to chew on? Scott the poet says, I think what I think what I think that quite a bit of my problem stems from being alone more often than not, especially when I don't have school. So I don't think I get enough conversation and stimulation that my Gemini Mars requires. Yeah, that's a
hmm.
really good observation. As somebody who also has a Gemini Mars, um, I have a tendency to be like more self-destructive when I'm like when I'm like not
Hmm.
occupied. I actually do better when I'm busy. And I
Hmm.
get more done when I'm like busy and have when I have multiple projects going on for whatever reason. I've kind of always been like that in my life. Like I've noticed when it's like I just have the one thing going on, sometimes it doesn't turn out as well because there's like too much on it that I kind of need to keep that lightness with it. But the
Hmm.
stimulation is a really important thing for you, and it's going to be a big driver for you in life, as I'm sure you've noticed. Yeah, Scott said same, especially because of my Pisces sun. Yeah. So it's interesting because you got the Pisces sun, and so like some certain level of like that solitude and like that resetting that so many of us need, to restore ourselves, is probably in there. But at the same time, you do need regular mental stimulation, probably regular connection with other people that you find interesting and stimulating,
Mm.
is going
Yeah.
to be really motivating for you.
Hmm.
I know it is for me.
Hmm.
It's like everything to me to be yeah, I really like I've been thinking a lot about like my dopamine addiction and just like man, I
It's
just
the
have
damn phone.
always on that damn phone. Yeah, like always. Yeah. I fucking love
I
Gemini
think
energy.
don't underestimate the power of like connecting like online though. Like
Yes.
we have
Yeah.
our phone calls and like that is just like I love it.
Yeah. And there's so many different ways of, like when you're I mean, so when you're alone, like obviously that's you're going to have to work a little harder to you're gonna have to work a little harder to get that stimulation or you occupy your own attention. It's a little easier to come by and be occupied and being stimulated when there's like another person there, right?
Yeah.
Or like something to bounce off of, I think, for Gemini
Uh-huh.
energy, right? Whether it's you or the thing that you're doing or it's other people. I think one of those things is going to need to be in the equation. You know what I
Oh yeah.
mean? But it is important. Like, yeah, we are human beings and we are social creatures. I think that's another thing that our hyper independent culture has diminished about us is that like community connections and like conversations are a big part of how we learn, and
Hmm.
like it's actually kind of like satisfying, you know, to be able to connect with people in that way. It's like a human need. I think, you know, we don't think about it
Hmm.
like food and shelter and things like that, but I think
It
it's
is
just as
so.
important. It's just as important, and especially for those of us with strong Gemini energy, it's like we do need that outside connection. We can do the inside connection too, but it's like at a certain point, you know, come on, give me a little something else. You're gonna get it's gonna be too narrow to just be solo all the time, I think. Like
Hmm.
I've already done that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my Gemini, I mean, I would say you're the Gemini queen, but I think it's Shelby. I don't think we got anybody that has more Gemini than Shelby today. So
Right.
Shelby is taking home the Gemini prize for this particular live stream. But I just wanted to thank you, Mackenzie, for being my
Oh,
first guest and
thanks.
co-hosting this Gemini party with me
Thanks
because
for having me.
I had so much fun. I really
Me
loved
too.
talking about one of our favorite signs. And so thank you guys for being here, for participating, for sharing this. If you are not already a member of our Patreons, why not? Why not? Why not? We both of us have these amazing Patreon communities where we share our insights and we have community and we learn about astrology and each other and
Hmm.
spirituality. And so if you haven't already, go find us on Patreon. The links are in my bio, and that's how you can find Mackenzie as well. And so make sure you're following us places because we're both small creators and it helps. So
Yeah.
thank you guys, and we will see you next